So I'm going to talk a little bit about what those problems are and some of the ways to get around them. All right, so common challenges in documenting data systems for a data catalog. So one is gatekeepers, and we've talked about this a number of times. I also talked about this now, is that you might have resistance from the people within your organization who are the owners of those data systems to let you expose the metadata to a open catalog, right, for your employees. So I'll fall back to the same thing I've said a number of times, particularly in the roadmap session. If you haven't done that, that was the second one here where we talk about documenting the goals and outcomes that you're trying to do with this initiative, and what and the purpose and reason for this. So maybe you're trying to expand more self-service reporting. Maybe you're trying to make sure that you're retaining institutional knowledge around your data through turnover. Maybe you're trying to better satisfy auditors. Maybe you're trying to improve turnaround in report and data request, or trust and transparency and consistency in data. Or maybe you're trying to make the onboarding and training of new report writers faster. All of those types of reasons, right? Or types of things where a recommendation to help with that is to have an open data catalog. And that's the conversation, that can help those conversations with those gatekeepers to say why, right? Also, what I was saying before about the security concerns, right? That liberating the metadata can actually help them with their security concerns, because they're no longer having to conflate access to metadata with access to the data. So just be prepared for those conversations, but I think a mistake a lot of people make is they just sort of come to them and say, I need a credential to connect to query the metadata tables or something. And the answer to that is oftentimes no. A lot of these people, their job is to say no appropriately, right? They're protecting the data. So we need to say, like, hey, we're trying to do this. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is what we'd love to have you. We want to include your system in this, in the system that you manage in this catalog, because that's going to add so much more value to that system, because people will be using it more effectively. The next issue is that vendors that don't expose their database for metadata discovery. So like one example is, so you have like Microsoft Dynamics, right? That's a SQL Server database underneath it. And it used to be that you could query that directly. Now more often than not, now that you've got a cloud hosted version, and they've contractually kind of don't let you access the database. They have APIs and things that you can connect with. So there's a couple ways to get past this. One is that with that particular product, like, you can purchase for additional money sort of a mirror database that you can have access to, just kind of getting around that problem. The second is there are tools and third-party products that actually, for a lot of these systems that now have like a proprietary API front end to the database and don't let you directly connect with the database, that you can interact with that. So some of the data catalog tools like ours, we'll have sort of specific connectors for that, or work with third-party companies that do, like, we use CData, which is this company that provides third-party JDBC drivers that make things like Microsoft Dynamics API layer look like a database. We can query it through this third-party JDBC driver that abstracts their API layer into the ability to query. It's a super cool feature, and it makes that metadata thing very powerful. So I would take a look at that. The other thing is that we have some people who say, we have some Workday clients, and Workday can make that difficult. You can also do stuff like CData for that. But the reality is that they're not, like, if you're not doing a lot of direct query on that internal database, maybe that doesn't matter. And a lot of times what people do is like have like extract processes or operational data store staging dumps, where they're taking data out in extracts or APIs from that source data system out into a reporting database, and that's where they do most of the reporting off of. And for a lot of people, they say, like, that's sufficient. I'm going to document that staging database, and I don't have to worry now. Maybe later, okay, but I don't worry now about documenting the actual underlying thing, because really what matters to me is that all my reporting, all the questions that we have around our data, we're really interacting with it at the a staging database level, or maybe documenting the APIs kind of. The next is data sets with limited metadata. So if you've ever done anything where you're extracting the metadata for a database and you get it out and you realize, oh my gosh, there's no primary keys or foreign keys in this, or there's no comments on the tables. And that's not uncommon these days, particularly since a lot of tools for development store all that information up in like an ETK layer and don't actually update the database. So the challenges here is like have the ability in your catalog to let you supplementally add that information if it doesn't exist, or if the vendor hasn't documented it or whatever. Or figure out how, if you can't extract it from that ETK layer or from some other documentation, that you can import that on top of the metadata. So know that it might not just be coming straight from the database, it might be coming from some other application or developer layer of information for some of that. PeopleSoft Oracle is a good example. They have the primary key, foreign key relationships don't exist in the database. They exist only in the application engine. So you have to pull it out of there if you want that, or supplementally document later. The last thing is what I say, like weird or non-relational data systems. So think about if you architect your data model endpoint to only represent relational databases, that can become a challenge if it's really important for you to document non-SQL kind of databases or unstructured data databases or more API things. So think about the structure of that and how you want to look at it. Or if you're going to just understand like how you're translating that non-relational database into kind of this table column thing. So some people just say, hey, my whole thing is just table column, table column, table column, and that's great until you're dealing with something that doesn't make sense, right? So be careful about that. All right. So the other types of things that we have there are like object-oriented databases or XML, or if you want to document things like a CSV or conceptual models or other things, just think about how you can support those different type of data model types as well.